वासुदेवाय
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम
ओम
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो
ओम
भगवते
नमो भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय। अधर्म लक्षणा नाना
अधर्म लक्षणानां
अधर्मलक्षणानां नरकाश्चानुवर्णिता
नरकाश्चानुवर्णिता
नरकाश्चानुवर्तिता मन्वन्तरश्च व्याख्याता
मन्वन्तरश्च
मन्वन्तरश्च
व्याख्यातः
व्याख्याता आद्यः स्वयंभुवो यतः।
आद्यः
आद्यः
स्वयं भूयो
स्वयंभुवो
यतः।
यतः। You have also described, at the end of the fifth canto, the varieties of hellish life that exist from impious activities, and you have described in the fourth canto the first Manvanta, which was presided over by Swayambhu Manu, the son of Lord Brahma. Text 4-5. Priyavratottanopadur
प्रिय
प्रियव्रतोत्थानोत्थानः
vanshastaccharitani cha
वंशस्तच्चरितानि च
dvipavarsha samudradi
द्वीपवर्षसमुद्रादि
nadyudyana vanaspatiim
नद्युद्यानवनस्पतीनां
नद्युद्यानवनस्पतीन्
dharamandal samsthanam
धरामण्डलसंस्थानं
bhagalakshana mananatar
भागलक्षणमानतः
भागलक्षणमानतः
ज्योतिषां विवराणां च
ज्योतिषां विवराणां च
यथेदम् असृजत् विभुः.
यथेदम् असृजत् विभुः।
Yes. Someone like to read?
May I read for you?
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Translation. My dear Lord, you have described the dynasties and characteristics of King Priyavrata and King Uttanapad. The Supreme Personality of God had created this material world with various universes, planetary systems, planets and stars with varied lands, seas, oceans, mountains, rivers, gardens, and trees, all with different characteristics. These are divided among this planet Earth, the luminaries in the sky, and the lower planetary systems. You have clearly described these planets and the living entities who live on them. Purport. Here the words Yathedam Asrijat Vibhu clearly indicate that the Supreme, the Great Almighty Personality of Godhead, created this entire material world with its different varieties of planets, stars, and so forth. Atheists try to conceal the hand of God which is present in every creation, but they cannot explain how all these creations could come into existence without a competent intelligence and almighty power behind them. Simply to imagine or speculate is a waste of time. In Bhagavad Gita 10.8, the Lord says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo, and I am the origin of everything. Mattaha sarvam pravartate, whatever exists in the creation emanates from me. Iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samatta. When one fully understands that I create everything by my omnipotence, one becomes firmly situated in devotional service and fully surrenders at my lotus feet. Unfortunately, the intelligent cannot immediately understand Krishna's supremacy. Nonetheless, if they associate with devotees and read authorized books, they may gradually come to the proper understanding, although this may take many, many births. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 7.19, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Vasudeva Krishna is the creator of everything, and his energy is displayed in various ways. As explained in Bhagavad Gita 7.45, a combination of the material energy, Bhumir Apo Anado Vayu, and the spiritual energy, the living entity, exists in every creation. Therefore, the same principle, the combination of the Supreme Spirit and the material elements, is the cause of the cosmic manifestation. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So, this is very interesting. The way this chapter is proceeding, we're talking about the history of the life of Ajamil. This chapter is following the chapter which talked about the reactions of varieties of sinful activities. So, we have seen, actually, in the fifth canto, we have seen descriptions of different types of planetary systems, ending with the very lowest planets, the hellish planets. Now we're talking about the history of life of Ajamil, who is delivered from a hellish condition, who's born into a Brahminical family, but is fallen into a hellish condition and gets delivered from there. So the lead up to that event is being described here now. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvata tyaktva deham punarjanmaneti mameti swarjuna. The activities, the appearance and activities of the Supreme Lord are transcendental. One who actually understands this will become freed from material misconceptions. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada is now explaining very clearly that actually the Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes. In the very first canto, we have seen the cause of all causes, Krishna. And in the second canto, we have seen actually how the Supreme manifests the material creation in the form of the Virat Purush. And the manifestation of this Virat Purush is actually the home of all the separated energies of the Lord who are the living entities. So it's a bit of a mystery, it's a bit difficult to understand because the living entity sees the phenomenal world. He doesn't understand the cause behind that. So therefore, even the most learned of living entities, even the most learned of men, are very hard to understand who is the Supreme and what is his manifestation. So it takes many, many births actually. One may think, like if we see, for example, now let's take the atheistic argument that this phenomenal world is actually created by man. Now one may think, how is Supreme Lord behind the creation of rockets and machines and locomotives and other things, like this Empire State Building? How is Supreme Lord behind it? The man has built it. There was an architect who designed, engineers who constructed, put the beams and columns and put the building up. So we have to understand. Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita that living entities are my parts and parcels. Mameva ansha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Manah shasthani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. Living entities are separated energies of the Lord and they become a part of the phenomenal world. So when a living entity is also creating something, this creative impetus is coming from the Supreme Lord himself. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So if an engineer is designing a building based out of his own desires, that inspiration, that knowledge, and the capability is being provided by the Supreme Lord. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So Krishna is giving that knowledge. So Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridayadeshe Arjuna Tishtati. So he's sitting in the region of the heart and he's inspiring. So in this way, we can actually even look at the atheistic argument that Lord is not doing anything and still understand that Lord is actually doing everything. The scientists say, I have created this. The scientists have done this. Yes, the scientists have certainly done it, but they are the secondary causes. The primeval impetus and the primary source of that knowledge is the Supreme Lord alone. So therefore, if we look at the atheistic argument, we'll still understand that the Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes. To understand this, it requires many, many lifetimes. Bahunama janmanamante jnanvan mam prapadyate. After many, many births, one comes to this understanding. Vasudeva sarvam iti. Very interesting verse that Srila Prabhupada is quoting here. Vasudeva sarvam iti. That he's the cause of all causes. Sarvam iti, the end of all. So if you keep on excavating, if you keep on digging deeper and deeper into the cause, eventually you'll arrive at the Supreme Lord himself. Samahatma Sudurlabha. So it's a very, very rare soul who is able to reach that conclusion. And that is what makes bhakti so difficult. To understand Krishna is the cause of all causes. One who reaches that stage will become delivered from the material misconception. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here? So shall we continue?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Text 6. Adhuneha Mahabhag.
Adhuneha
Adhuneha Mahabhag.
Yathaiva Narakannara.
Yathaiva
Yathaiva
Narakannara.
Narakannara.
Nanogra Yatanan Neyat.
Nanogra
Yatanan Yena.
Neyat.
Tanme Vyakyatum Arhasi.
Tanme Vyakyatum
Vyakyatum Arhasi.
Would someone like to read? Yes, please.
Translation and purport by Divine Grace, Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Oh, greatly fortunate and opulent Sukadev Goswami. Now kindly tell me how human beings may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions in which they suffer terrible pains. Purport. In the 26th chapter of the 5th canto, Sukadeva Goswami has explained the people who commit sinful acts are forced to enter hellish planets and suffer. Now Maharaj Parikshit, being a devotee, is concerned with how this can be stopped. Vaishnava is paradukha dukhi. In other words, he has no personal troubles. But he is very unhappy to see others in trouble. Prahlad Maharaj said, My Lord, I have no personal problems, for I have learned how to glorify your transcendental qualities and thus enter a trance of ecstasy. I do have a problem, however, but I am simply thinking of these rascals and fools who are busy with Maya Sukha, temporary happiness, without knowledge of devotional service unto you. This is the problem faced by a Vaishnava. Because the Vaishnava fully takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he personally has no problems. But because he is compassionate towards the fallen conditioned souls, he is always thinking of plans to save them from the hellish life in this body and the next. Parikshit Maharaj therefore anxiously wanted to know from Sukadeva Goswami how humanity can be saved from gliding down to hell. Sukadeva Goswami had already explained how people enter hellish life, and he could also explain how they could be saved from it. Intelligent men must take advantage of these instructions. Unfortunately, however, the entire world is lacking Krishna consciousness, and therefore people are suffering from the grossest ignorance and do not even believe in a life after this one. To convince them of their next life is very difficult because they have become almost mad in their pursuit of material enjoyment. Nevertheless, our duty, the duty of all sane men, is to save them. Maharaj Parikshit is a representative of one who can save them. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hmm. So in the 7th canto, actually, this verse is described. No, Naivodvijay Paraduratya Vaitarnayas Tadavira Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta Shoche Tato Vimukha Chetasa Indriyartha Maya Sukhaya Bharam Udvahato Vimudhan. O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence. For wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in the thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them. So this is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to the Lord. See, by the living entity appears in this world by his own karma. And, you know, everything happens on its own. Material nature provides everything. So Krishna is also explaining in the 2nd chapter and then again in the 4th chapter that material nature, you should just accept whatever is coming by of its own accord. Yadrachaya, whatever comes of its own accord. Your real aim should be to identify who you are. Like a student in a college or in a school, he's not so much concerned as to how the seating is, whether the chairs are comfortable or not, or whether the food is good or not. His main concern is whether the education is good or not. Because after a few years, the school or the college would be a history, just history. But the education will remain. So just like that, this human body, the facilities that come here, whether the family life is good or not, whether I look beautiful or not, all this is temporary. What is permanent is my consciousness. That is what I'm going to carry from one life to another. So it's very important. So this is exactly what Prahlad Maharaj is also saying. Maharaj Parikshit is also concerned. Now, why is, these hellish conditions have been described and they are seemingly impossible. One who's been tortured so miserably, how will he be in a position to purify his consciousness? So, what should be the activities? What should be the consciousness of a person who wants to escape this position? So, your transcendent quality does enter a trance of ecstasy. I do have a problem, however, for I'm simply thinking of the rascals and fools who are very busy with Maya Sukha or temporary happiness. This is the problem faced by a Vaishnava because a Vaishnava fully takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He personally has no problems. But because he is compassionate towards the fallen, conditioned souls, he is always thinking of plans to save them from their hellish life in this body and the next. So here, therefore, Maharaj Parikshit is asking, kindly tell me how human beings may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions. See, now why is the Vaishnava so concerned? If someone is demonic, he deserves to suffer. So why should it concern a Vaishnava so much? Like we discussed previously also, Mamayavansh Jivaloke. These are separated energies of Krishna. They are Krishna's own children. The devotee, being a very dear child of Krishna, feels naturally unhappy that other living entities are suffering. Because they are parts of Krishna, their suffering is also suffering of Krishna. So therefore, the devotee is concerned that others should not suffer unnecessarily. And this is the reason for which a devotee travels from place to place preaching the message of the Supreme Lord. That is why Sankirtan is important. Sankirtan is actually the real charity a devotee can do. There's no point in devotee trying to provide food to the hungry or providing shelter to the homeless. All that is coming from the prarabdha. A devotee may provide food to the hungry, but because his karma is bad, the soul will again have to go hungry. A devotee cannot sit forever with an orphan or someone to feed him all the time. A devotee has to also understand that his only business in this life is to give him a permanent cure for these problems. The real problem is not that someone is hungry or someone is sick or someone is homeless or orphan. The real problem is the bad karma that has come from which this is coming. And the real root cause of bad karma is bad desire. So the Vaishnava tries to rectify the desires of the living entities by giving them the holy name of the Lord. Paradukha dukhi. The living entities, the devotee suffers because he sees others suffering. On his own, he is not at all unhappy. A devotee has no concern because he has already taken the shelter of Krishna's names. He has already taken the shelter of the boat of the Lord's lotus feet. So he will easily cross over this material ocean, but he's concerned about others who are not taking that shelter. Therefore, he preaches from door to door to convince them that this material life is actually a source of misery and they have to take shelter of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Is any questions or comments here?
Prabhuji, I have one question. This
Yeah.
Virat Rupa, is it a material form in the sense, is it representation or is it imaginary or it is actually a material form?
It is a spiritual form consisting of material elements. See, understand it this way. There is actually nothing material. Everything is spiritual. What is called material is actually the state of consciousness. So my body is material because I am using it for material sense gratification. Okay. If I become 100% Krishna conscious, then this body becomes spiritual. So when Krishna enters into this material world and he converts this Mahat Tattva into the Virat form, that is into the Vishwarup form, that is spiritual. The elements which constitute that form are actually material. This form is temporary because it exists only for a certain time. For example, we see the Balya Roop of Krishna, the Balya Leela. That form is not existing in the spiritual world. That is only existing in the material world. So how do we consider that? Is that form a spiritual form or a material form? It's a spiritual form which is temporary. So Vishwarup, no living entity can create Vishwarup. Only Krishna can do that. So therefore that form is spiritual. But because it is consisting of material elements and it is temporary in existence, it can also be considered a material form. Does that answer your question?
So, spiritual body, uh, so the body, is it made up of Pancha Mahabhuta? That is not important. Whether it is
So,
made up of from what? You mean to say it is about the consciousness?
yes. So, what do you think about the body of Acharyas? Like Srila Prabhupada's body. Was that a spiritual body or a material body?
He was a spiritual body
But
because
then
he
he
was
was,
totally Krishna conscious.
but he was
But
still
as you
passing
said,
stool and urine. Srila Prabhupada was passing
yeah,
stool and urine. So, is that material or spiritual?
As you said, it is spiritual, but I don't know.
Yeah, the stool and urine are material. But Srila Prabhupada's
Hmm.
body is to be considered spiritual because it was only used for spiritual purposes. The consciousness was purely spiritual, so it was not material.
Okay. So, like a pure devotee, you mean to say?
Yes,
So, pure devotee has a spiritual body.
yes, his body is spiritual.
Okay. But does that mean that they are God realized?
Of course, how can they be spiritual if they are not? See, spiritual means 100% Krishna conscious.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank
Hare Krishna. Yes. Hmm. So we continue text 7.
you. Okay, Prabhuji.
Hmm. Uh, any other question?
Prabhuji, Anumata just put a question in the chat.
Okay, just a moment. Check it. Okay, there's a question here. At times we hear negative reactions too, and we try to preach the right path, and sometimes people don't want to follow or can't leave their bad habits. So then what should be the course of action? Leave preaching so that they don't ticked off from KC and possibly, and if possible, feed them prasad. Yes, both are correct. See, a devotee gives Krishna. The cloud is always raining down. It is raining on a fertile ground and crops are growing. It is also raining on the rocks and nothing happens. So a devotee simply distributes Krishna consciousness and moves on. A devotee is not attached to the idea that someone should become a devotee. A devotee's purpose is to make others into devotees, but if they don't take it, a devotee is not attached to that. The acharyas, they would preach and then move on. Because everyone has his own course of life. One will take many births, someone may become immediately. So we don't know who's at what stage of spiritual evolution. So we give them the holy name, we give them the scriptures, which is essentially the holy name only. We give them this message and then we move on. Then it doesn't matter whether someone takes it or it doesn't. We have done our job. Of course, the devotee doesn't think like this. Paradukha dukhi. He understands that if this person does not take Krishna consciousness, he's going to suffer. But that is beyond our control. That is between him and Krishna. Our only capacity is to give him this knowledge and then hope that he takes it up. So, yes, give them all facilities, but don't be attached. So, that's the reason why it is best to avoid creating congregations because then one becomes unnecessarily attached. And, oh, this is my congregation. No, then one himself falls down. It is best to simply preach the message and move on. Does that answer your question? Okay, that's it.
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Hmm.
Like according to order of life,
Hmm.
that spirituality was taken very seriously from the age of Vanaprasthasam, right?
Hmm.
So now we are starting so early, like in the Grihastha only we are starting. So why is it that we are starting so early?
I didn't get your question.
See, spirituality should, at the end of Grihastha Vanaprasthashram, we can totally dedicate ourselves for spirituality, right? So because we have completed many of our responsibilities, and but now we are in ISKCON or Krishna consciousness. We are uh, starting so early in Grihastha. We are taking spirituality so seriously. Is it too early or it is needed?
See, that's why I say, please study Prabhupada's books and lectures. Actually, if you study the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that, it's never too early to start. Actually, we are already too late. Spiritual education begins with brahmacharya at this, at the very childhood stage, when one has not even acquired too many material misconceptions or too many material impressions. So right now, we are not grahasthas, we are grahamedhis. We are grossly enjoying our bodily senses. Grahastha means someone who lives like a brahmachari. Grahastha means grahastha brahmachari. Sannyasi lives in the forest. Brahmachari lives in the ashram of his guru. Grahastha lives in his household. But their activities are the same. Serving the Supreme Lord totally. Grahastha doesn't mean that one is taking vacations in Switzerland, one is, marrying his children lavishly, one is acquiring huge properties, one is working day and night as a doctor, engineer, or whatever. That is Grahamedhi. Yan Maithunadi Grahamedhi Sukham hi tuchham. Maithun Adi. Maithun Adi. All activities related to sex life. My wife is beautiful, my children are very nice, I have a big house, I have a big car. Maithun Adi. Ato Grah Kshetra Sutapta Vittayar. Janasya Moha Yam Aham Mamiti. So all this is activities. All these are the activities of Grahamiti. A Grahastha means that he lives with his wife in a household and he's dedicating his life only to Krishna. He has no other business except Krishna consciousness. Like we see the example of Srila Prabhupada's own father, Gaur Mohan. Prabhupada writes that actually the cloth business was actually just a side business for my father. His main business was deity worship. He would spend more and more time in worshipping the deity and talking about Krishna than he would actually talk about business. His business was not so successful. Gaur Mohan did not have a very successful business. It was moderately okay. He could just get by with it, but he was not a very big businessman because his actual business was only to preach Krishna consciousness. His actual business was only to worship the deities. So that is Grahastha. Vanaprastha cannot take to spiritual life if he has not been a brahmachari or a good Grahastha. Vanaprastha typically just means a retired man who doesn't have any occupation. Now he's just trying to look for something in today's age. So if one tries to take spirituality at the age when he's already retired, he'll not be able to take it at all. So many old men and women you see, they're just talking nonsense because they have no spiritual knowledge. So it's already too late. Actually, it's already too late. That's why we must pray to Krishna for his mercy.
Actually,
So,
my friend asked me this question, Prabhuji.
yeah, so that
Means
friend
she was
has to
asking me, she was saying why you have entered so much early into this spirituality. You are not enjoying your life. She was telling me this is the time to enjoy the life. But the human purpose is different, right? They think that material enjoyment is the purpose of human life, but then we know that what is the purpose of human life, and earlier we start, it's better, right?
Hmm.
That way, Prabhuji, one should not even get married, right? I mean, we'll not have, we can spare that time again because when it comes to marriage and then children, so many responsibility comes with it. So we have to invest that much time. We can, instead, that time we can invest in spirituality.
Yeah, see, there is no time to serve Krishna really. We must try to think of him all the time. But so many responsibilities actually distract us from the real purpose of our life. Because this is what we see. We are meditating so much on our profession and our other activities, paraphernalia, and we get distracted from the real purpose, understanding Krishna. Human life is too short. So yes, as far as possible, one should avoid getting married, but that doesn't mean that one should just live a happy bachelor's life. One should sit down in one place and think of Krishna all the time. One should visit holy places, meet holy people, and try to understand the scriptures very deeply. Because that's the way to understand Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. So the question is then how can we okay. Sorry, question has gone too long. Hmm. How can we not be attached to those we are preaching? I think I'm missing the point that the preaching is coming from Krishna. It's not me. I am the object which Krishna is leveraging. Its hands. I get that point theoretically, but please pardon me asking that. Uh, hmm, you are preaching for more than 20 years. How do you practice this? I can learn by practical tips. Okay. See, In this material world, nobody belongs to us. Nobody. Not your beloved husband, not your beloved child, not beloved mother, father. Nobody belongs to us. We are just travelers. So, like we are traveling in a train. And in the train, there are so many coupes. So, in one coupe, we are sitting with 5 other passengers. And there also, someone is sitting next to us, someone is sitting opposite us. And then there's the next coupe, then there's the next bogie. So, there are many passengers which are traveling with us. Some are very close, some are very far. This is exactly how life is. Someone is our mother, someone is our father, someone becomes our wife or husband, someone becomes our child, someone becomes a friend. But in the end, when this train reaches its destination, we have to give up everything. Then we just say bye and that's it. Over. We don't see them ever again. Hardly, there's no chance of seeing them. So, this is exactly what happens in preaching also. We're giving the message of Krishna, but we must understand that we are fighting the material nature. Material nature will also fight back and take away those who we are preaching to. Sometimes they will remain devotees and just go away. Sometimes they'll go away and not become devotees. Sometimes they will just go away and even become our enemies. All of this is possible. So, how much can you remain attached to anyone? Besides, by being attached, you are also becoming a hindrance to their spiritual life. Because your job is not to become attached to them and make them attached to you. Your job is to get them to connect it to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. So yes, it is difficult. Sometimes you feel bad. I preached to this person, now he's talking nonsense. It feels bad. But that's the way material nature works. Prabhupada also, when Vishnujan Swami disappeared from this world, Prabhupada cried. When Jayanand Prabhu left this world, Prabhupada cried. When devotees would leave Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada would be sad. That was it. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was in his ashram one day in Calcutta, and one sannyasi. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur only had 16 sannyasi disciples actually. So one day, the wife and children of one sannyasi came and they dragged him home, and he left. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was crying. He said, it takes so much effort to save a jiva from the clutches of Maya, and yet Maya is so strong. So you see, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also cried, Singha Guru. So yes, it feels bad, but we can't hang on to those things. I'm not saying we become impersonal. Okay, I'm like a physics teacher. I just go, I teach physics and I go away. No, we are giving bhakti. We are giving a personal science. We are teaching people the art of loving Krishna. So naturally, there is bound to be some love and affection. But we should not hover on the mental and physical or bodily platform and become attached to all those we preach to. We should understand that they are Vyasti Jivas, they are individual living entities, and they have their own choices. And we must respect those choices. So, Hare Krishna. Yes, any other questions or comments? So maybe we take one more verse, short one. Text 7. Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Sri Sukha Uvacha.
Uvacha.
Nached ihaiva pachitim yatham hasa.
न चेत् इहे
Haiva
यथां संसु
Kritasya kuryan mana ukta panibhi.
Kritasya kuryan mano
Panibhi.
niphi
Dhruvam savai pretya narakan upayati.
Dhruvam savai
Savai
pratya
Narakan
narakan upayati
Ye kirtita me bhavatas tigma yatana.
yakirtita bhavatas mayatana.
Yes.
100 Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Translation purport by His Divine Grace Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Sukadev Goswami replied, My dear king, if before one's death, whatever impious acts one has performed in this life with this mind, words, and body are not counteracted through proper atonement According to a description of the Manu Samhita and other Dharma Shastras, Manu certainly enter hellish planets after death and undergo terrible suffering, as I have previously described to you. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura mentions that although Maharaj Parishit was a pure devotee, Sukadeva Goswami did not immediately speak to him about the strength of devotional service, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samatityaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Devotional service is so strong that if one fully surrenders to Krishna and takes fully to his devotional service, the reactions of a sinful life immediately stop. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita 18.66, the Lord Krishna urges that one give up all other duties and surrender unto him. And he promises, Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashyami. I shall free you from all sinful reactions and give you liberation. Therefore, in response to queries of Parikshit Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami, his guru, would have immediately explained the principle of bhakti. But to test Parikshit Maharaj's intelligence, he first prescribed atonement according to Karma Kanda, the path of fruitful activities. For Karma Kanda, there are 8 authorized scriptures, such as Manu Samhita, which are known as Dharma Shastras. If those scriptures in these scriptures, one is advised to contract his sinful acts by performing other kinds of fruitful action. This was the first path recommended by Sukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, and actually it is a fact that one who does not take to devotional service must follow the decision of the scriptures by performing pious acts to counteract his impious acts. This is known as atonement. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, very interesting. Parikshit Maharaj is asking a question regarding purification from sinful activities, and Shukdev Goswami is now answering from the karma platform. Atonement. So, Shukdev Goswami did not immediately speak to him about the strength of devotional service. So, you see, Mamayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Mamayo avyabhicharena. One who without deviation. Vyabhichara means, something like a deviation, distraction, sinful. So, avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who acts in a, in the 11th canto also we see something like this, one apratihata ahetuki atma suprasiddhi. So if one who acts without distraction, without any, personal motivation, one will attain pure devotional service. One will attain pure devotion. So one who acts without distraction on the path of spiritual life, he will actually become free. So you see, the point here is that it's not the sinful reactions which are dangerous. It's the sinful desires. If sinful desires are gone, one is already Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. One is already on a spiritual platform. Then sometimes a devotee may be born blind or he may look ugly. For example, the great sage Angira, he's not good looking. Sage Ashtavakra, his body is bent in 8 places. Ashtavakra. But they are not concerned with bodily conditioning. So it's coming from some past life, but they don't care. They are like examples set by the Supreme Lord. Because the devotee has transcended the bodily consciousness, the devotee is unconcerned with what happens to his bodily form. And he's concerned only with Krishna consciousness. Just like, you travel by a train, you don't care whether the train is blue in color or red in color, it is dirty or it is clean or it is dented or it is pristine. It doesn't matter. You just have to complete your journey. Yes, there may be some inconvenience, but you are not overly attached to it. Like when I was traveling by train to Mayapur, the train wasn't very good, not very well maintained. There were problems. But now the journey is over, it doesn't concern me at all. So likewise, all these sinful and pious activities are at a bodily level. A devotee is unconcerned with this. They may be good, they may not be good. So bhakti is actually the cure, because bhakti doesn't just take care of the sinful reaction. It removes the sinful desire, which is the cause of sinful action. So it removes the root cause. Hare Krishna. But if one is not a devotee, one has to follow atonements. Otherwise, one will suffer. One will suffer because one will maintain a bodily consciousness where he will be in an uncomfortable situation. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments here?
Prabhuji, you said, I mean, it's written, right? The reaction of a sinful life immediately stop. Means all the reactions of all the sins immediately stop, or it happens slowly over a period.
Immediately. Prabhupada says, in one moment you can become pure devotee. One moment. So as soon as you have given up sinful desire, you realize that there is no piety, no sin. You are just a soul.
No, I mean reactions of the past sins before we coming to the cases. That time we have committed so many sins, not only this life, last life also. So do they vanish at once, all of a sudden, like that, or it happens, or it gets vanished slowly over a period of time?
See, practically speaking, it will take a long time. But if you surrender immediately, it will stop immediately also. Sarva dharmana parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. So the moment you surrender, it is finished. But coming to that point of surrender takes a long time. So we should not,
Complete
as
surrender.
So as devotees, we should be very particular that we are not committing any sinful activity, and we are surrendering to Krishna very faithfully. Otherwise, we will be made to suffer in the next birth.
Prabhuji, complete surrender means what is that exactly state? I mean, what you can tell in words? How exactly one is completely surrendered means what? Is
Sarva dharmana parityajya. You are not a husband, you are not a wife, you are not an engineer, doctor, you are not a government servant or anything. You are only a servant of Krishna. Jiva Krishna Das ei vishwas karle to aar dukhe nahi. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. So when you give up all misconceptions that I am a husband, I am a father, I am a mother, I am a daughter, when you give up all these misconceptions and you surrender totally to Krishna, that is complete surrender. You may continue your duties, but it's just an external form. Then you are no longer emotionally attached to these things.
that was my question. What about our doing our duty? So we are just doing externally, as you said.
Yes, just externally. Okay, this is a daughter, this is a son. Okay, just take their food, give them some education. That's it. Not that I hang on to them. Oh, this is my son, this is my daughter. The day when you are emotionally detached from them, that's the day you have actually become freed from that reaction.
Slowly we are trying.
Yes, so we have to try very hard because these bonds are very strong. They're not easy to give up. Okay. So, any other question or comments here? In that case, we stop here today. We continue on Monday with the life of Ajamil. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank
you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavata
Thank you,
Pranam.
Prabhu. Dandavata Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Krishna.